Okay, so you know that feeling you get when you're watching an expert and you're just absolutely sure you could do what they're doing? We're going to unpack that feeling, see how your social feed kind of turbocharges it, and then look at how new AI technology is about to change the entire game.
So picture this. You're watching a professional. Maybe it's an Olympic athlete, a rock star, a surgeon on some TV show, and this little voice in your head just pipes up. You see them do their thing, and you can't help but think, you know what? That doesn't look that hard.
And this feeling is totally universal. It's captured perfectly right here by this Reddit user watching the Olympics. We see someone at the absolute peak of their performance, and our brain just makes this wild leap. So what's actually going on in our heads when that happens?
Well, it turns out psychologists actually have a name for it, the illusion of skill acquisition. And it basically formalizes that exact feeling. It's this gap that opens up between how good we think we are and how good we actually are. And that gap gets wider and wider just from passively watching.
And you see this illusion pop up in like all sorts of places. You read forums where people have watched a few salsa tutorials and feel totally ready for the dance floor, or they see a killer drum solo and think they've somehow absorbed the rhythm. It even goes for stuff like video game trick shots or, even watching a medical drama and getting this weird false sense of confidence.
And this, right here, is the crucial disconnect. Our brain is amazing at mapping out the sequence of actions, the what to do, but it completely, totally misses the feeling of doing it. All that crucial hands-on feedback, the muscle memory, the years of coordination, that's the stuff that turns knowing the steps into a real, actual skill.
Okay, so let's pull back for a second, because this illusion, it doesn't just stop with trying to play the drums. It expands into something way bigger, how we look at other people's entire lives, especially through the wild lens of social media.
I mean, just think about your own feed for a second. When we're just passively scrolling, we're not watching specific skills anymore, are we? We're consuming this endless stream of perfectly curated realities, the best vacations, the biggest career wins, the perfect family photos. And this constant fire hose of highlights, it triggers this really powerful psychological thing called social comparison.
And what's fascinating is that social comparison isn't just one big blob. A really interesting study breaks it all down into 4 different flavors. It all depends on 2 things. First, are we looking upward at someone who seems better off, or downward at someone who seems worse off? And second, do we contrast ourselves and create distance, or do we identify with them and feel a connection?
And the research found something really striking. 2 of these comparison types are super strongly linked to higher stress. First, you've got upward contrast. That's that classic envy, right? The frustration you feel seeing someone else's highlight reel. But what's just as stressful is downward identification. That's the fear and the worry that someone else's misfortune could just as easily happen to you.
Okay, so if our social feeds can be this emotional minefield just waiting to stress us out, how on earth do our brains deal with it all? Well, it turns out we actually have this amazing built-in defense system to handle the fallout.
The main strategy is called cognitive reappraisal, and you can think of it as consciously hitting the brakes on that comparison train. It's the process of catching that first sting of envy or that pang of fear, and then deliberately changing the story you're telling yourself about what you're seeing.
And this skill it's like a superpower for your mental health online. The study found that people who are good at this can actually flip the script. They can turn a flash of envy into a moment of inspiration or a moment of fear into a feeling of gratitude. It really acts like a protective shield for our well-being in this crazy digital world.
And, context really matters here. The research pointed out that during the intense isolation of the COVID-19 quarantine, for example, we were all relying on social media so much more, and that just turned this whole cycle up to 11, making these patterns of comparison and the need to reframe them way more intense.
So let's put it all together. We've got this whole psychological loop, right? We watch people, which creates an illusion of skill. This then fuels social comparison, which can cause a lot of stress. And our brain tries to manage it all with cognitive reappraisal. Well, get ready, because a brand new wave of technology is about to pour gasoline on this entire fire. You know all that polished, seemingly perfect content that drives so much of this upward comparison? The kind of stuff that used to require expensive cameras, years of practice, or a whole production team to make? Yeah, those days are pretty much over. Those barriers aren't just getting lower, they're being totally shattered. I mean, look at this. New generative AI tools, like this one from Meta, are just changing the entire game. You can now take one single photo, type a simple command, and bam,
instantly generate a dynamic, shareable, professionally looking video. The line between being a passive consumer and a high-level creator is just dissolving right before our eyes.
Okay, so let's tie all of this together. The gap between watching someone do something awesome and being able to make something awesome yourself is practically disappearing. In this new era where watching and creating are collapsing into one single thing, what does that mean for us?
At the end of the day, it really leaves all of us with a fundamental choice. We can stay as passive viewers, just getting pulled along by these psychological currents, vulnerable to the illusion of skill and the stress of comparison. Or we can choose to become conscious consumers, aware of what's happening under the hood, actively using tools like cognitive reappraisal and engaging with this new world mindfully.
And that brings us to the ultimate question for this new world we're entering. When AI makes creating a perfect reality completely effortless for everyone, what happens to our sense of well-being, our sense of achievement, our shared sense of what's even real? As these lines blur, we all become curators of reality. So the question is no longer just what we consume, but what kind of world we all choose to create.